Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're still awaiting the arrival of Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Horace Chang. He should be here in just about 10 minutes, and once he gets here, then we'll get moving. Thank you for your patience.
Schools should be safe havens for our youth. However, armed violence in school settings is sadly a growing phenomenon. Firearms are finding their way onto the school grounds and into the schools, exposing Latin American and Caribbean children to unnecessary risks. This trend is a reflection of the region's high levels of homicides committed with firearms, the highest in the world, as well as of the elevated levels of criminality plaguing our region. This scourge, with an unacceptably young face, is growing and affecting the very adolescents and young people who we are meant to protect. To magnify matters, the issue of firearms in schools is one that, until now, has received little attention. This is accompanied by the fact that there is an absence of statistical data in the region, making it difficult to identify the true magnitude of the problem. But why are firearms entering our schools, and what is being done to address it? Weapons are entering our schools and being used to threaten and intimidate. They are also being used as a response to bullying and other forms of violence under the guise of protection, or simply under the false pretense that weapons symbolize power, popularity, and manhood. Regardless of the reason for bringing a firearm to school, one thing is clear: firearms have no place in school settings, and their mere presence increases the risk of injuries and fatalities. In recent years, states and partners have acknowledged arms control as an effective measure in preventing firearms incidents in schools. At the national level, the education and security sectors have come together to offer practical solutions. Some of these include the creation of norms prohibiting the entry of weapons into schools, while others focus on keeping firearms out of the reach of children through safe storage practices at home, ensuring these guns never make their way to the school grounds. Guidelines have also been developed so that the school community knows how to react in the unfortunate event a gun finds its way into educational centers. So, how else can this challenge be addressed? By promoting dialogue among various sectors and actors to develop strategies to prevent the presence of weapons in schools. Recognizing and enabling youth as agents of change, as established by United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250 on Youth, Peace and Security, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including a gender perspective and the promotion of nonviolent masculinities to reinforce a culture of peace and peaceful coexistence, collecting data for informed decision-making, and finally, by promoting disarmament and arms control campaigns as an effective tool in preventing armed violence in learning establishments. Firearms have no place in our schools. We must keep our children safe. schools should be safe havens for our youth. However, armed violence in school settings is sadly a growing phenomenon. Firearms are finding their way onto the school grounds and into the schools, exposing Latin American and Caribbean children to unnecessary risks. This trend is a reflection of the region's high levels of homicides committed with firearms, the highest in the world, as well as of the elevated levels of criminality plaguing our region. This scourge, with an unacceptably young face, is growing and affecting the very adolescents and young people who we are meant to protect. To magnify matters, the issue of firearms in schools is one that, until now, has received little attention. This is accompanied by the fact that there is an absence of statistical data in the region, making it difficult to identify the true magnitude of the problem. But why are firearms entering our schools, and what is being done to address it? Weapons are entering our schools and being used to threaten and intimidate. They are also being used as a response to bullying and other forms of violence under the guise of protection, or simply under the false pretense that weapons symbolize power, popularity, and manhood. Regardless of the reason for bringing a firearm to school, one thing is clear: firearms have no place in school settings, and their mere presence increases the risk of injuries and fatalities. In recent years, states and partners have acknowledged arms control as an effective measure in preventing firearms incidents in schools. At the national level, the education and security sectors have come together to offer practical solutions. Some of these include the creation of norms prohibiting the entry of weapons into schools, while others focus on keeping firearms out of the reach of children through safe storage practices at home, ensuring these guns never make their way to the school grounds. Guidelines have also been developed so that the school community knows how to react in the unfortunate event a gun finds its way into educational centers. So, how else can this challenge be addressed? By promoting dialogue among various sectors and actors to develop strategies to prevent the presence of weapons in schools. Recognizing and enabling youth as agents of change, as established by United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250 on Youth, Peace and Security, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including a gender perspective and the promotion of nonviolent masculinities to reinforce a culture of peace and peaceful coexistence, collecting data for informed decision-making, and finally...
Good morning again. Just another update. The minister should be here in about 3.5 minutes.
In learning establishments. Firearms have no place in our schools.
Yes, take my word on that.
Keep our children safe. schools should be safe havens for our youth. However, armed violence in school settings is sadly a growing phenomenon. Firearms are finding their way onto the school grounds and into the schools, exposing Latin American and Caribbean children to unnecessary risks. This trend is a reflection of the region's high levels of homicides committed with firearms, the highest in the world, as well as of the elevated levels of criminality plaguing our region. This scourge, with an unacceptably young face, is growing and affecting the very adolescents and young people who we are meant to protect. To magnify matters, the issue of firearms in schools is one that, until now, has received little attention. This is accompanied by the fact that there is an absence of statistical data in the region, making it difficult to identify the true magnitude of the problem. But why are firearms entering our schools, and what is being done to address it? Weapons are entering our schools and being used to threaten and intimidate. They are also being used as a response to bullying and other forms of violence under the guise of protection, or simply under the false pretense that weapons symbolize power, popularity, and manhood. Regardless of the reason for bringing a firearm to school, one thing is clear: firearms have no place in school settings, and their mere presence increases the risk of injuries and fatalities. In recent years, states and partners have acknowledged arms control as an effective measure in preventing firearms incidents in schools. At the national level, the education and security sectors have come together to offer practical solutions. Some of these include the creation of norms prohibiting the entry of weapons into schools, while others focus on keeping firearms out of the reach of children through safe storage practices at home, ensuring these guns never make their way to the school grounds. Guidelines have also been developed so that the school community knows how to react in the unfortunate event a gun finds its way into educational centers. So, how else can this challenge be addressed? By promoting dialogue among various sectors and actors to develop strategies to prevent the presence of weapons in schools. Recognizing and enabling youth as agents of change.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start by having the playing of the national anthem. The Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Dr. Gary Conneal, United Nations Resident Coordinator, Mrs. Denise Antonio, Resident Rep, UNDP. We have our Chief Technical Directors, Mr. Rowan Richards and Shauna Chores, Chief Technical Directors in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Junior Rose, Senior Director, Strategic Planning, Strategic Policy Planning, and the Reform Division in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Dalton Spence, the President of the Community Development Council in this community of Norwood that we are in, Mr. Delon Gale, President of the Community Development Council of Denham Town, Pastor Olivia Dixon of the Jamaica Evangelistic Center, members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, members of the media, the students from the prep school who will be presenting later. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed such a wonderful feeling that we can gather this morning to launch a very positive event. What we are launching is a project aimed at reducing small arms and light weapons in Jamaica. Now, this morning, most of you, if not all, would have been listening. You'd have heard the announcement of the launch of the state of emergency in St. Catherine. Now, there's no disconnect between that launch in St. Catherine and this one. What is happening in St. Catherine and the wider Jamaica, we have been seeing a proliferation of gun in the society and gun crimes. One of the things we also know, over 80%, roughly 80% of the murders in this country are being committed by the guns, and predominantly light weapons, pistols. So this project, where we launch with the aim to reduce the use, the trafficking, and the proliferation of small arms, there's a direct connection between this, what we are doing here, and the events in the eastern section of the island. Because at the end of the day, we are hoping the intent, the objective of this project would be that we'll see meaningful and significant reductions in the use of firearms to commit crimes in this country. And it's within that context, I want to say that the government of Jamaica reiterates its commitment to the advancement of programs that ensure the safety and security of its citizens and visitors to the island. Now, maybe up to about 2 years ago, I would have thought, and I would have said, the ministry's responsibility for finance would have been responsible for the whole of Jamaica. It is so significant. Now, what I can say is that 2 years later, whoever is responsible for national security is responsible not just for Jamaica, but all Jamaicans here, all Jamaicans abroad, all visitors and potential visitors to our island. That's the significance of the activities undertaken by this ministry. Just to underscore how important this kind of event is, once we can have that kind of curtailment and control over those activities associated with illegal firearms. So the Ministry of National Security remains concerned about the elevated levels of extortion, drug dealing, and turf control, which has resulted in heightened incidents of community killings. It is against that backdrop that the use and proliferation of illegal firearms and weapons are major concerns for the government. So, while law enforcement has successfully tracked and apprehended illegal gun holders, some of whom are now convicted felons, the low levels of convictions compared to the retrieval of firearms have prompted the government to revise its strategic response to the illicit gun trade. This trade has contributed to an escalation in gender-based violence, particularly femicide. The introduction of the United States Savings Lives entity, and in short, I'll just say salient, that fund to Jamaica, and Jamaica is one of 2 countries that is currently benefiting from this pilot, through the Reducing Small Arms and Light Weapons program, is intended to fund and guide the government as it adopts new strategies that will effectively apprehend and remove violence producers from our society. And this will be done within a framework supported by our Constitution and jurisprudence. The salient will serve to enhance our legislative and institutional framework to regulate access to small arms, their parts, components, and ammunitions, which is informed by gender-based analysis. This means that, what this really means is that our national and local capacities to respond to armed violence through a gender lens will be strengthened as we seek to tackle grassroots causes and effects of armed violence. It is important to note that this initiative also goes in tandem with current efforts to and actions to repeal and replace the Firearms Act. And there's currently the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, which is currently deliberating on that bill. So this new bill, which is geared at ensuring greater prohibition, restriction, and regulation of firearms and ammunition and for related matters. So consequently, Jamaica wishes to reaffirm its commitment, participation, and cooperation to the Joint Action Statement of the 9th Caribbean United States Security Cooperation Dialogue that was back in October 2020, which addresses all forms of illicit trafficking. To this end, we look forward to the comprehensive violence audit to be conducted under this salient project, coupled with the delivery of specialized training courses on the investigation and prosecution of firearms trafficking and its link to organized and serious crimes. So over the next year, the Ministry of National Security will continue to be salient in our stride as we work towards saving more lives for building a Jamaica society that is secure, cohesive, and just. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you again to this launch. We have an impressive lineup of presentations, but ahead of those presentations, we must seek the Lord's blessing and proceedings this morning and in our country. So, having set that context, I'm going to invite Pastor Olivia Dixon to give the opening prayer this morning.
Bless the Lord, amen. This morning I want to say good morning to everybody. I just want to welcome the MP this morning, Reverend Chung, and all the you officers and members of the law. We appreciate you this morning being here, and we are here, and we just want to acknowledge the Lord. So I'm going to pray. So I would ask you if you could stand with me for a brief moment as we acknowledge the presence of our God with us. Without him, we can do nothing. In him, we live and move and have our being. So I'm going to ask you this morning as we pray to just lift your faith. We believe God for what he's going to do, for the project that you have started now, and that God will do what he has to do when we ask him. Father in heaven, this morning we thank you. We come before your presence, Lord. We are standing in this house. God, you know the affairs of men. We're glad that you enter the affairs of men. And when we pray, you hear us. And as we call you this morning, we acknowledge your awesome presence with us this day. And whatever will be said and done will be done to bring glory to your righteous name. And so, God, we appreciate you this morning being with us. Bless this procedure as we continue. Whatever be done, it should be done, God, to bring glory to your name. Our country in your hands, and we commit every worker, every officer. We pray for coverage. We pray for guidance. We pray for protection. We pray for your mercy this morning. Cover this congregation. Bless your people. Father, we give you thanks in the mighty name of Jesus for what you are about to do in this country. We give you all the glory, all the praise as we stand to acknowledge you in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Thank you for that powerful prayer, Pastor Dixon. Indeed, some powerful words there that we hope will help to repel the forces of those powerful weapons that are out there. And following such a prayer, I'm now going to call on the President of the Community Development Council for this community of Norwood, Mr. Dalton Spence, to bring greetings.
Good morning still, eh? It's such a great honor to be here. Good morning, Doc. Greetings, DSP, and I'm not sure some of the names, but Mr. Cummins, Counselor for the Hearer, we give greetings to you all. In Norwood, we could not have chose a better place to launch this initiative, knowing we have our own share of problems here and shootings. And as the CDC, we have done and try our best in many ways to put the right tools in the hands of the youth. And as somebody always say, the devil find work for what? Idle hands. And so we always think that putting the right tools in the hands, it's better, it has a better consequence than the gun. And that's why even with UN, we did an initiative this year with the UN DP that we tried to create some work for our young men. And we did some farming, some hydroponic farming and some other stuff, because we say if we give these guys these work, at least they will earn some money and they'll be able to keep out of crime. And it's not a lack of initiative why we have this. We and the government of Jamaica, and in this country, the CSJP, the USAID, we have invested so much in our young people, not only not Norwood, in all the other areas. But persons, I think, still have what we would call deadly intent once they have the wrong tool in their hand. And I can tell you that having the wrong tool in your hand bring diverse consequences, especially in the family. I know that we have been focusing on doing that, but a lot of persons forget about the idea, the consequence of gun are more preservative and affect the entire community. When one person is shot at Hooger Square, which happened I think last year or year before, and in Warwick Hill, when 5 young men were shot and killed, it's not those 5 or persons who die or was actually have the consequence, the children that is left behind, all these family members. And it affects social also, because we usually have our little football games and we can't even have it and people can't even enjoy themselves, because we are afraid that if we come out and start to have our little games, then somebody might have some type of ill feel against somebody and might want to kill. So it has its own consequences. And so plenty of our children an act of violence in their home, school, and community Many persons have witnessed shooting. These are the ones also. So I'm happy for this initiative that the more we reduce the guns off the street, take it off the street, we will have a bright future. Am I right? And if we say that the future, these young people are the persons that are going to take care of us elderly, DSP Gale, then God help our soul. Because most of them are intent and dangerous. But we will have to do our best to put what? The right tool in their hands. And if they don't want that tool and they want the other tool, then the court of law, the officers here, they will have to just face that consequence. And so we are happy for this initiative, and I'll be a part of it, and in whatever way possible. The community is very important. You know of something they're hiding, tell it to the police. If you know, I know that you might want to say, I don't want to tell no police, I don't want to tell this because X, 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 Y, and we have all this amount of excuses. There are avenues and doors that are open there. Call me. You can call me. See me. Say so-and-so, you know that this is happening in my space. Because if you don't correct it now, it's going to be at your doorstep very soon. But take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the events. God bless you.
Indeed, an excellent intervention there from a member of the community. But as a demonstration of the kind of partnership that's involved in the effort to seek to reduce the use and proliferation of small arms and the kind of joined up government approach that we utilize in terms of attending to all matters concerning the development of the country. A key partner in this effort, of course, is the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And in that context, I'm going to now ask the Senior Director of the Strategic Planning, Mr. Junior Rose, to bring greetings this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Courtney Williams. Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister of Jamaica and Minister of National Security. Dr. Gary Connell, United Nations Resident Coordinator. Ms. Denise Antonio, Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program. Leadership of the Jamaica Evangelical Center, leadership and membership of the community of Norwood Heights, leadership and membership of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Good morning. I am carrying a message on behalf of the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. I don't have the same flair, but the message is the same. The importance of today's occasion and its implication for Jamaica's development objective cannot be overstated. As a general statement of principle, it is clear that the policies or programs aimed at reducing or eliminating violence are desirable. This initiative, however, goes deeper than that. In supporting Jamaica's effort to reduce small arms and related weapons, and United Nations is making an important contribution to our country's effort to promote economic expansion and development, objectives which are undermined by violence. One of these objectives is the implementation of the Rural Development Program, which the ministry is responsible for, and which is being given special attention in the context of the national recovery from COVID. It is also critical to the achievement of substantial and sustainable improvement in the living standard of our citizens across the regions of the country. This program includes the intensive installation of internet, water, electricity infrastructure, repairs to educational institutions, the roads at the community level. A key outcome is the expansion of economic and social life so that local population finds the opportunity they need in their community. This is central to the effort to reverse the trend of rural to urban drift. However, peace is also essential to this effort. This program, indeed, any intervention by the government in general, as well as the efforts of civil society, are constrained by violence and outcomes of violent acts. These are seen across the country and was said by Mr. Williams earlier. In our cities, rural areas, as well as town centers and other urban locations within them. While the reduction of illegal light weapons are not the only solution to the problem of violence, it is most important approach, as too many of our people use these weapons in a range of encounters that result in trauma, injury, death, damaged families, community, and national life. Therefore, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development endorses and warmly welcomes the Salient Jamaica Joint Program. We share the hope and optimism that this will help to achieve the objective of targeting violent prevention and reduction in vulnerable communities. We are fully committed, as is the government, to its success. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
I could certainly hear the sound of Minister Mackenzie there. Mr. Rose said he may not have had the flair of Minister Mackenzie, but I'm sure that message had the reach and resonance that the Minister Mackenzie would have wanted. Now, I know the UNDP embraces inclusivity, meaning all stratas of society, the young, the not so young, the old, the not so old. In addition, any such package like this could not be complete, notwithstanding the challenges we have in trying to contain crime and the ugly scenes that we get from time to time. No package is going to be complete with some amount of entertainment. And that is the case here this morning. So we're going to have some entertainment from the Rosehart Preparatory School. So when I talk about inclusivity, make sure we have the kids involved, we have the elderly involved, we have the youth involved across all genres of society. So we're now going to invite the children from the Rosehart Preparatory School to present an item this morning.
Yeah, yeah. La 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 la. Oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh. So I said, these are some serious times. All I can see around us is just violence and crime. Full time for us to sexualize, socialize, and realize. Let the sun shine throughout every day. Let the moon shine through the peaceful night. Cause this is 7 times rise and 7 times fall. But I don't really believe in a falling thing at all. Cause life continues as it goes. If you really want to know the truth, half the truth hasn't been told. Oh no, 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 no. So I say, these are some serious times. All I can see around us is just violence and crime. Full time for us to centralize, socialize, and realize. Let the sun shine throughout every day. Let the moon shine through the peaceful night. Cause this is 7 times rise and 7 times fall. But I don't really believe in the falling thing at all. So sometimes it changes as it goes. If you really want to know the truth, well, half the truth hasn't been told. But no, 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 no. Since sometimes you think it's peace and safety, it could be a lesson in destruction. So when you wake up this morning, you better give thanks. Cause you don't know if you're gonna live to see tomorrow. Life is much more precious than gold. Yeah, yeah. And if the truth hasn't been told, so I say, these are some serious times. All I can see around us is just violence and crime. Full time for us to centralize, socialize, and realize. Let the sun shine throughout every day. Let the moon shine through the peaceful night. Cause this is 7 times rise and 7 times fall. But I don't really believe in the falling thing at all. Step on the corner, watch how you hang up on the corner. A straight drive by me, see I go up on the corner. The youth them really know who no other. I straight them, I straight, I left the bottom. Cause I dumb in them say they gonna, they gon' play. And then can't come in and shots start to spray. All the innocent lives get taken away. So I say, these are some serious times. All I can see around us is just violence and crime. Full time for us to centralize, socialize, and realize. Let the sun shine throughout every day. Let the moon shine through the peaceful night. Cause this is 7 times rise and 7 times fall. But I don't really believe in the falling thing at all.
Yes, let's give the kids a big round of applause there. I'm sure Egyptian will be very proud of you hearing you sing that this morning. And just watching the kids, you know, it reminded me of the days when I used to try to sing at festival. All right, so following that, we are going to move along, and I'm now going to invite the UNDP resident representative, to bring brief greetings for us this morning, Mrs. Denise Antonio. Let's welcome her.
Sorry. Good morning to all of you, and that's the reason why we're doing this here today. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, my colleague, Dr. Gary Corneal, United Nations Resident Coordinator, Mr. Courtney Williams, our Master of Ceremony, and also the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry, all of our wonderful guests here today, and the CDC representative, the community, the police, everyone here, the children, good morning to all of you. I greet you as a partner for a violent-free Jamaica. It's not impossible. We are all ambassadors in this country and in this community, and we are being champions for peace. But let's state some few facts. Some of us here today have seen too many bloodshed. You see these children saying this. They live in a state of uncertainty. We have seen too many guns in the wrong hands. Too many people senselessly murdered, killed before they could become doctors, lawyers, business people, and probably one day Prime Minister of Jamaica. Many of our communities know pain and loss that many of us have not even seen. And based on what we've heard, this community is no different. Yet, our collective resilience, which shows today, is the driving force that we can transform this community, Denham Town, and every other community in Jamaica to reduce violence. Your communities bring meaningful insight because we need the communities to tell us what are the issues. So your experience matters. So today we launch this Small Arms program. It's a pilot, and we hope that it will help to continue to support the government and the citizens to reduce armed and light weapons. So as the Permanent Secretary said, salient, and I will use your term in Jamaica, we want to mash up all of the factors that allow guns to come into this country. And we need to do it. We need to find out what is the root cause of violence. Therefore, we will have people coming in, expertise, to look from the policy, from law enforcement, but we need the experienced use of small arms. Very key is we have to change our behavior. We have to modify the way we think and deal with the situation in conflict. So the hope is that this project will help the young people in Denham and Norwood to receive training in how to manage conflict. When we have disagreements, how to do it by talking and engaging rather than shooting and killing each other. We will train the teachers. We will work with teachers. We will work with guidance counselors to strengthen their capacity to also support the youth in the community. This morning, I want to thank Minister Chang because when we started doing the initial mission scoping, he said very clearly, I'll never forget in our first engagement, he wanted a violence audit. And this will form part of this work that we're doing here to conduct the audit. But the audit will not be successful if we don't have the participation of the communities. We need your full participation so that we get the right information and be able to get the work done. My brothers and sisters, we are paying a high price for crime and violence in this country. In 2021, the data shows that nearly 1,464 persons were murdered in Jamaica from homicide. This was the highest homicide rate in Latin America and Caribbean. It can't happen. We need to do something about it. Crime has an impact on the economy. It has an impact on development. It has an impact on the living standards, and Jamaicans deserve better. In 2017, it is estimated that Jamaica is losing 68 billion Jamaican dollars every year because of crime and violence. Think about it. This can be used to build roads. It can be used to feed the hungry. It can be used to build better schools, better homes, jobs for people, for our young people who are migrating to other parts of the world. We must therefore remain steadfast, and we have to keep trying and testing until we get the strategic interventions right and find out what works for Jamaica. Salient, of course, is a comprehensive solution to this end. This investment of 76 million Jamaican dollars is established by UNDP and the United Nations Organization for Disarmament Affairs. It will take 12 months to implement, so we don't have any time to waste. We need to show results, and the hope is that from this intervention, we will be able to get more funding. We're not doing it in isolation. There are many other interventions that are happening. We're going to synergize so that we're getting it right, all of us together. Like they say, all hands on deck. We have to get it right. But I won't speak for the resident coordinator, but I think on behalf of UNDP and the other agencies as well, we remain committed to supporting Jamaica in reaching your Vision 2030 by being a cohesive and secure society, and partnership is the key. I remain hopeful that this beautiful country and the resilient people of Jamaica will embrace this vision of becoming the place of choice to live, work, raise your family, and do business. And like your Chief Justice says, to retire. Thank you very much.
Antonio, very powerful message there. And one point about your presentation that struck me, and it sticks a card with me. You mentioned that annually, Jamaica losing about $68 billion from crime. That's a whole lot of money. And she outlined many things that we could do with that money. Now that $68 billion that you just mentioned, that twice the total salary for the entire police force. What we are losing in crime, twice what we are paying the police. So, what does that mean? We put the crime down to zero and we could double the police pay. That's one way to look at it. But again, just to underscore the fact that we are losing a lot by just that level of crime in the country. Now, having listened to a number of speakers so far, I'm going to ask you to turn attention to the screens. We're going to have a video presentation that has been put together by our partners, the UNDP. Yes, the 76 million is much welcomed. And from that now, I'm going to invite the UN resident coordinator. I wondered first whether it is I should call it the English way or the Spanish or the French pronunciation. Dr. Gary Conil. I'm not sure whether that was English, Spanish, or French, but your time, sir.
Thank you so much, Permanent Secretary Courtney Williams, for the management of today's proceedings and for your kind introduction, and of course for pronouncing my name. It's never easy. The Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Junior Rose, Senior Director in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, my colleague and friend Denise Antonio, Resident Representative, UNDP, and other members of the United Nations country team that are here with me, Mr. Dalton Spence and Dalian Gale, Presidents of the Community Development Council in Norwood and Denham Town, respectively, the leadership and membership of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, distinguished guests, and all protocol observed. Deputy Prime Minister, friends, I bring you the greetings on behalf of Jamaica's UN country team, a family of about 14 resident and non-resident UN agencies, funds, and programs, which are in some way, shape, or form addressing the issues being ventilated today. On this launch, we welcome the opportunity to intervene in another coordinated way to support the elimination of the trade and criminal use of firearms. Now, the statistics have and will continue to be reiterated today, so allow me to quickly move to the important point I want to make. The United Nations in Jamaica is committed to supporting and working alongside the people and government of Jamaica to turn the tide on the illegal use of small arms and the resulting epidemic of homicide and assault that this has perpetrated on Jamaican society. Jamaica, you've heard, on average records anywhere between 1,200 to 1,300 murders annually, the vast majority being committed by illegal guns. As challenging as the context may be, the United Nations remains Jamaica's ally in its efforts in addressing illicit small arms and reducing crime and violence. Now, the commitment to Jamaica comes from the highest levels of the United Nations. This is why in 2018, when the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres launched the Peace Building Fund, Jamaica was selected as one of the 2 pilot countries to benefit from the safety and security program, Salient. This is also why it was important that as we constructed the UN Multi-Country Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, sort of our business plan with government, peace, safety, justice, and the rule of law was established as one of its 4 priorities. And as such, when Jamaica signed onto the MSDCF in February of this year, it further empowered the UN to mobilize resources and expertise to support the eradication of the culture of violence, including, of course, gender-based violence, and the socioeconomic consequences, conditions that make people and societies vulnerable to violence and crime. So the UN partnership will facilitate this resilient approach. Salient, and Denise, I think you said it, is one step, and we hope to be able to mobilize additional resources through the project's catalytic design. Now, Minister, I want to be the first to say that the UN welcomes the contribution you elaborated in your 2022-2023 sectoral debate earlier this month, which represents multifaceted approaches to eliminating illegal guns within Jamaica's community. We welcome the tabling of the Repeal and Replace Bill and the parliamentary discussions of the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction, and Regulation Act 2022. We hope their enhanced finalization and passage as well as other related legislation, will further strengthen the legislative environment, enhance penalties, as well as deter the disincentives gun possession. Now, distinguished guests, it has long been established that the response to this level of criminal activity requires a multidimensional, multi-partner, and multi-sectoral approach. And the Salient Project fits well in line with interventions and other bilateral and development partners. And we welcome the opportunity to be part of the solution that not only addresses the availability of illegal guns, but also addresses the root causes of violence and conflict. You see, we have no doubt that Jamaica's Vision 2030 goal of a secure, cohesive, and just society is still achievable. And this is not based on blind faith. Those of us that are fortunate enough to live here, we see a world-renowned center of musical excellence. We see a treasure trove for tourism, with Montego Bay sitting at the heartbeat of the tourism product. We hear and know and support PIOJ and partners' projections of upwards of 8% economic growth in Jamaica in 22. We understand the World Bank's ranking of Jamaica within the 10 top countries for ease of starting business. We know Jamaica has remained committed to universal primary education and has some of the highest enrollment rates in the region. We were witness this week, right here in Montego Bay, at the 8th Annual International Conference and Exhibition, when the Most Honorable Prime Minister Holness articulated Jamaica's positioning as a globally competitive logistics hub poised to benefit from the billions in new investment and new jobs. We understand Jamaica's full potential. But still, we also realize that there's a lot more to be done to inspire men and women to choose peace over conflict. There are roles to play from our schools, religious and spiritual institutions, media, musicians, and influencers in reculturing our citizens, especially men and boys, to adopt healthy conflict resolution and more peaceful and positive expressions of their masculinity. I therefore join the government in calling on Jamaicans everywhere, at home and in the diaspora, to see themselves as change agents, to reject the urge to participate in the illegal trade of guns, and instead to actively participate in the transformation required to build peace in this small island. Further, there should be no family, community, or institution that provides a safe haven for criminal elements, no matter who they are, where they live, or where they work. In closing, I do want to openly thank the UN agencies whose effort alongside the ministry brought Salience to life. The United Nations Development Program under the very able leadership of Denise, the United Nations Office for Development Affairs, and the Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament, and Development in Latin America, the United Nations Office for Drug and Crime, and of course the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Working together, each playing our part, Montego Bay can be the city of peace, Kingston, the seat of diplomacy, and Jamaica, home to communities of peace-loving people and peacemaking institutions where conflicts are prevented and positively resolved. Thank you so much for this opportunity today.
Thank you, Dr. Cornell, for those words. And our next presenter, this gentleman, he was born a disciplined child. He grew up to be a very conscious songwriter, singer, musician, producer, all of that goes into a package of an top artists. And so, with that, without saying any further words, let me welcome Maki Conscious!
Yeah. Hey! Be careful what you do. Hey! What if the poor should become the rich and the rich become the poor? What if the weak should become the strong become the weak? What if the high should become the low become the high? What if the little that you have right now is given to those who have not? So be careful how you live your life today. You may live to regret it tomorrow. Be careful every little thing you say. You may eat your bread of sorrow. Be careful every little move you make. You're living in a time that you borrow. Be careful every little step you take, 'cause the road of life is narrow. What if the ones with the power to lead is led by the ones they lead? What if the ones with the food to feed is fed by the ones they feed? What if the ones who throw the blow is led by the ones they blow? What if? You say what if? So be careful how you live your life today. As an entertainer, I must say greetings, family. Most Honorable Horace Chang, friends alive. I want to say one thing. The fundamentals of life for me is choice and consequence, no matter what we do. I personally, as an entertainer, believe, and a songwriter, that what we are living now has been the contents, the lyrical contents of many of our songs for the last 20 years. We are living it out today. The other way of reversing, I must applaud the initiative to reduce small arms. I live in this era now with South Spring. I drive through them every day, and I must commend the government and all the efforts that you make and making to reduce crime and violence in Jamaica and the community, so we can live and walk freely. The initiative to reduce the small arms is a great initiative, but I should say I started an initiative a year or two ago where I believe that while you take the guns off the street, if we can go into the minds of the people, so the few that is left with the guns will have no need to use it. So I would like to relaunch my initiative with a song that I had which says, follow your dreams. There are too many dreams that die in the cemetery. The cemetery is the greatest gold mine. People die with great ideas unnecessarily. So this is a song I use as my initiative through the schools I was doing a tour, and I would like you to join me with it next time around. It says, follow your dreams. Set your goals. Follow your dreams to the highest point. Believe in yourself.
Highest point, believe.
Follow your dreams, believe in yourself. Your goals you must achieve. Making your hands, soul in your hands, to the highest point, believe. Follow your dreams, give it your all. Never you say you can't achieve. Setting your goals, it's all in your hands, to the highest point, believe. If you never had a dream, then a dream you can't achieve. If you never set the goals, a result you can't achieve. If you never had the plans, the result you won't achieve. Then if you're sure that you've done them all, then in yourself you must believe. Follow your dreams, believe in yourself. Your goals you must achieve. Making your plans, it's all in the hands, to the highest point, believe. Follow your dreams, give it your all. Never you say you can't achieve. Setting your goals, it's all in the hands. To the highest point, believe. Everybody wanna go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You can't soar like an eagle if you're afraid to fly. If to see a shooting star, you're gonna look up in the sky. Then to be what you wanna be, all you got to do is try. Follow your dreams, believe in yourself. Your goals you must achieve. Making the plans, it's all in your hands. To the highest point, believe. Follow your dreams, give it your all. Never you say you can't achieve. Setting your goals, it's all in the hands. To the highest point, believe. I say follow your dreams. No matter who you are, if you don't have a dream, there's none to achieve. And we can help them achieve it. We say, let nobody tell you you can't be what you wanna be. If the world was made for you, it sure was made for me. Would never come easy without a sacrifice. One way to the highest high, you got to pay the price. Pay the price. Follow your dreams, believe in yourself. Your goals you must achieve. Making the plans, it's all in your hands. To the highest point, believe. Follow your dreams, give it your all. Never you say you can't achieve. Setting your goals, it's all in the hands. To the highest point, believe. Follow your dreams. We say the next initiative, take the guns. And then we take the minds. And those who have the gun will never need to use them because the mind is changed. Thank you.
Well, not only that was good entertainment, but we got their real conscious message. I think even without any scientific evidence, and I'm sure there is, but there's more than anecdotal evidence to show that there's a strong correlation between positive and conscious message in the music and the level of crime in our society. So it's really good to see when we can have artists like the Mackie Conscious and the like who continue to bring a positive message to those in our society. And actually, a very good way to set that platform for our next presenter, our keynote speaker, the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, MP. I was almost going to say, welcome him to Norwood. But in fact, he's welcoming me to Norwood. But nonetheless, we're now going to have our keynote speaker for the launch today. So let me invite Dr. Chang to the podium to give a brief presentation to us.
Thank my peers for welcoming me to my constituency. Thank you. Well, first let me express my appreciation to Mackie Conscious for a very conscious message. Son of Montego Bay, who has maintained that standard in his entertainment throughout. Mackie, good to have had you here. And to all young entertainers. First, I recognize our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Courtney Williams, who just did the introduction. He introduced the Minister to National Security on the other hand. No, but he has been with me for near 2 years, a year now, and carries the weight of administering one of our most challenging ministries. The resident representatives of the United Nations, Ms. Denise Antonio from United Nations Development Program, and Dr. Gary Conneal, United Nations Resident Coordinator. Dr. Conneal, I think, is from our neighboring Haiti, am I right? And recognize our Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Clifford Chambers, and the Superintendent for the Parish, Mr. Carlos Russell, and other members of the security forces present. The Councillor, my good friend, Mr. Joshua Cummings, and the Chairman of the CDC, Bishop Deacon Spence. Welcome. He does a good job as Chairman of our CDC, and of course, Pastor who led us in prayer early on, and the members of the community. Recognize other team members from the ministry, Ms. Shauna Chores, Chief Technical Director, who is very focused on the area of crime prevention and plays a seminal role in development of this program, and will be working very closely with that. And of course, Mr. Rose, who came over from Ministry of Local Government. In this constituency, Mr. Rose, we work very closely with SDC and the Ministry of Local Government at all times. I have to repeat my own word of welcome now to all I've named to this part of the constituency. Norwood is in the heart of my constituency. It's a very special place for me. The constituency are here, and Mr. Cummings thought he'd pull out some more members, or they're all gone to work. It's symbolic we are starting the particular project in Norwood, and I want to thank and commend the United Nations, the Summit Affairs, and the United Nations Development Program, the other agencies working to start here. Norwood has established its name across Jamaica, is well known, sometimes for very good reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons. And I'm glad you're here today, especially the national leaders from local government and of course from ministry and UN representative to see exactly what Norwood looks like and get a better feel of where we are. This church has been the seat of many community meetings, and we have seen it grown from when it started. The size physically was almost the same, but they have transformed the church over the years. It has grown from one to the other, but it has become a central point for pulling the community together. Of course, a big community, so you have here and the other half up on the hill, but it's one point we can come together at different times, though it is also known to be very near to the center of a significant amount of the violence taking place in Norwood, which is why on the other side of the road, we have a company of the Jamaica Defense Force, which is supporting the local police force in here. I'm not sure any members of the JDF is here this morning. No. Although the JDF base, the Burke Barracks, is just down the road, literally, but it was found necessary to have on the ground in Norwood this kind of security presence to maintain a level of peace and good order. The irony of all that, and why this project is here, has been initiated, is that this community evolved almost over time with everybody know everybody. Everybody go to the same schools. Many of them were bright kids, and that's the side of Norwood you don't hear about. I mean, we have had some, whether it is Dr. Boyne or Dr. Donaldson, young men who have come out of the community and have done extremely well, graduating. I think young Donaldson was not yet 24. He was head boy at Cornell College. We sent him through, assisted him through high school into university, and similarly Dr. Boyne and others. And there are numerous others. In fact, every year when I do university grants, my challenge is to prevent Councillor Cummings from absorbing all the funding, and I spent approximately $10 million a year on university grants to students. And the challenge I have is that if I allow it, he will absorb the whole $10 million very easily. And we give bursaries of level that assist the students in going there. So it's good to see this program come here because it represents, in a sense, the microcosm of Jamaica. It's largely a working people community. It doesn't have the extreme of poverty that we have in section of the corporate area, and therefore it will be a good measurement of some of the causes of violence in this country, because that's what we are faced with, an extreme level of violence. The project is seeking, doing an audit, will seek to identify some of the root causes and begin to look at how we can resolve some of them. As indicated, it is Salient is an acronym for the Saving Lives Entity Fund that was established by the Office of the United Nations Disarmament Affairs, United Nations Development Program, to support catalytic activities, that is, initiate activities in operationalizing and mainstreaming small arms control in development efforts and policies. And it is obvious from what has been said about the program, and what I will say further, is not just a matter of reducing supply. We don't make guns in Jamaica, but there seems to be a very almost insatiable appetite for acquiring guns from those who will bring them here and then using them on each other. The project itself was set up specifically with the peace building, within the Peace Building Fund, to support a multi-year cross-sectional sustainable assistance. That is, it's not a one-shot activity. It's been here for some time. In joint programs to be implemented in countries most affected by illicit arms. It is with mixed feeling I have it that I welcome it to Norwood, of course. I want the leadership to get a feel of Norwood, meet the people who they are, people like Deacon Spence, head of the CDC, and a councillor. At the same time, we know it's here because violence as Norwood has become attached, the name Norwood attached and signal to a high level of violence. And in fact, right where we are here, this church has been like an oasis, because around it has been one of the center of violent activity, which is why the camp is over here. And I admit sometimes that it's always, I have it difficult, even as a conscience representative, who is well known in this area, the square, Norwood Square, August Square, and know pretty much everyone within a mile of this church, that it has been the center of some of the most brutal violence we have had in the community. Brutal and brazen. And that's why we are here with this project. But it is difficult for me to understand and even to appreciate, and why the research is good, why you could get to that level of violence. You have had women shot in the square, fathers taking their children to school, and these 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, and they're killed dropping beside the kids right in this square here, literally at the door of the church. People shooting from one house to the other across the street. And it has been an ongoing challenge. We have had shootings taking place in the presence of the security forces, which oftentimes we hear put boots on the ground. Officers are standing there, and the officers abide by rules, are obligated to. They can't find a crowd. And that's the kind of brazenness we have had here, where individuals are willing to walk a few yards from the police because it's a lunchtime crowd. You walk and shoot somebody and walk out of the crowd because the officers are not in a position to respond. And if they respond and hurt a citizen, they'll be in court. And before you know it, not only do they lose their profession, and we have to pay somebody a huge amount of money. So the proliferation of firearms resulting in increased access in Jamaica is a direct catalyst for murders. Over 85% of our homicides are committed with a firearm. And we don't in any way take pride that Jamaica has the highest rate of homicides of any democracy in the world. The region has the highest rate of homicide at, I think, about 16 per 100,000. We are way above that, and the highest in the region. Every now and again, some small country compares above us, because small numbers in small countries mean a lot. And we have had a number of countries in Central America with significant problems. But Jamaica, as a liberal democracy, of which we are proud, has the highest rate of homicides anywhere, which means the highest rate of criminal violence. Violence that destroys our people, in particular young men, and terrorizes community. Sometime I've recalled the many days when that field on which the soldiers camp would have corner league, hundreds of young men playing football, hundreds of young people, audience. Now, the same people who are playing football are the ones that are killing each other. And we have to post a whole company of soldiers and several patrols of police officers occupy the place almost full time. Last year, the number of homicides was 1,288 at the time. And firearms was used in over 85% of the cases. And I said we don't make guns, and one leg of the fight against small arms and reducing light weapons in Jamaica is to reduce it coming into the country. That depends on working partnership with international agencies and our partners to the north, where the guns are bought easily and then transshipped through our borders. And we have to build out our security forces to be manning our borders very tightly. It's very costly, but it's something we continue to do. Indeed, both our legal ports and our porous borders on island, the Marine Police and the Jamaica Defence Force Coast Guard have to combine to deal with what is a very ongoing challenge. Tourism, of course, is one of our biggest activities, and I will come back to that, but it means that there are entertainment boats, there is yachts, there is fishing boats. There are hundreds, thousands of small craft around Jamaica. And because of our location, it's even more because we are ideal transshipment point in the region. Of course, the level of violence which requires the kind of study that is about to be undertaken, and I'm very pleased to hear it starting the violence audit. Because I said, I've made the comments on now because it reflects the contradiction we face in society now. We seem to be able to, and I can only quote the Prime Minister, is that we have normalized violence because we are doing, the community is a dynamic community. Now it is, I said, a community of working people. Not only that there's any issues that a meeting on a Friday is not a popular time to have a meeting, but most people now are working. They're gone out to work, and the kids attend school. And you'll see that there's the quality of life in here, though it's an informal settlement, is not exactly as the depressing kind of atmosphere. But they have a solid home. Some of the infrastructure is still lacking. We have moved to put that in, and in anybody you talk to now, they see the community as a working community, middle-income community. Yet we have had, a brutal and brazen kind of violence perpetuated on the community up here. And it needs to be examined how we have gotten there from young men who attend school together, work together, play football together, and overnight, like a flip of a coin, they start killing each other. The handgun is the choice of perpetrating crime in Jamaica. It's flexible, it's easy to conceal, and of course, it's not cheap. And that comes to other activities that are used. There's drug trading, and there's, of course, advanced fee fraud, other called a lot of scamming, and unfortunately, we find that once they earn the income, one of the first to do is buy a gun, and especially younger men who are involved. So, but reducing the supply of arms in Jamaica is critical to reducing violence. The program that's evolving is a joint program of agencies, the government nationally, the Ministry of National Security will be spearheading the work and working with other agencies that is relevant. We have in this year now, where we are standing one of the special pieces of legislation we have brought to deal with high violence and highly vulnerable communities, the zones of special operation, which is one aspect of our own program, again, to reduce what you might call demand, in that it's a development program. We have very significant presence of the security forces to reduce the activity of the criminal gangs and individual criminals who are using firearms around to kill each other. They remain in space, and then we do development programs, as we call the build phase of zones of special operation. Object is to ensure we can restore a level of normalcy and, in due course, have the security force to do their work as required elsewhere. But we need to identify the root cause of the violence, because when the security force moves, it will all restart if we don't diagnose right and fix that problem. And we cannot afford to have, throughout the country, the level of manpower in security forces that we have in a small section of, no, the half of the community. We have to post a company of soldiers, and seeing that we have identified at a minimum about 130 high-risk communities. And if we multiply that in terms of police and soldiers, I don't think we have much left in the budget. My permanent secretary would be able to calculate that very easily. Well, I don't think the budget, in fact, as we have it now, could afford that level of human resource in the security force alone. In fact, it would absorb the entire human resource budget. And Mr. ACP, I know my permanent secretary is giving you a charge with. You reduce the crime and restore the economy. Goes there. But in fairness, yes, violence and crime does damage our economy. Despite of the almost said normalization of attitudes, it is not only what we lose and what it costs us, but there is no measure of the level of lost opportunity that criminal violence and corruption impose on this country. The program as said is aligned with our Jamaica's goal, as outlined in this small video we saw. That is Goal 21 of the development program, a society which is secure, cohesive, and just, as the sustainable goal number 1, and localize the objective of global salient activity. Over the 12-month period that we are working initially, United Nations Development Program, the UN, United Nations Office for Disarmament, and of course supported by the Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament, and Development in Latin America, what is UNIREC, which we have worked with in the ministry, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Council. So United Nations is taking special interest. I want to thank them again and welcome them here, and hope we'll have the full participation. You know, now it has a very strong community-based organization, in spite of the challenge we have had and the violence we have had. It's remarkable that even sometime in the middle of the violence, you'll have Mr. Spence football competition at the top being played until midnight, and the football competition would proceed. Those of us who know the community know that some of the audience would stay on this side, the other stay on the other side, and when it's finished at 12, they go in that direction, they go in that direction. But it went on for many years. In fact, the discontinuation was more that the field was occupied by the first forward operating base of the soldiers for a long time, rather than the violent activity. The Ministry of National Security, consultation with the Ministry of National Security goes through the Central Court. Ms. Shauna Chowers heads the CTD section, the technical part of the administrative section of that. But we also work with the contraband enforcement team and the Jamaica Customs Agency to look at reducing the inflow of firearms. There's the historic guns for drugs trade, which tends to go through Haiti and Central America. Of course, they tend to call Haiti name more often Dr. Conley, but again, there are certain names that are easier to call. Just like in Jamaica, they mention now than West Kingston more easily than they mention elsewhere. That's not, but the drugs for guns trade spreads across both Haiti and Central America. And in fact, I think at some point Central America was far more active than Haiti. But it goes depending on the activity and the success of the security forces, and sometimes internal internal gang conflict. In the case of Costa Rica, I think there was a major breakdown in the gangs over there. And they not only created the problem for Costa Rica, but they killed off each other, and the activity from here was reduced. Some of those people were from Jamaica, some of those gangsters were from this area. The control and reduction of supply is crucial, but we have to do a number of other things to ensure we can begin to meaningfully impact on not only the supply, but on the marketplace, which is to reduce the number of recruitable young men into gangs and into this kind of activity. We have to work not only seek to control the small arms, not only to improve to reduce the supply, but population at risk benefit from armed violence reduction, violence prevention and reduction programs, which means, as I said, getting to the young men directly who are involved. A number of things that are being done in this project is legislative review of Jamaica's legislation. The Permanent Secretary indicated we have come a far way in bringing a new Firearms Act, which is called Prohibition, Restriction, and Control or Regulation of Firearms, which will, principal philosophy behind it, we want to separate the criminal gunman from the legitimate use of a firearm in the society. We happily don't have the kind of constitution that the United States have. It is not a right to bear a firearm in Jamaica. But law-abiding citizens who have a need are entitled to be granted the license because they have need of protection for work, for other things. But the law proved difficult to hold all the teams together, and you end up with sometimes some aberration where the law-abiding citizens maybe get caught and who is more easily apprehended get in problem, which was not necessary, and how we treat them. So we separated illegal firearm as a prohibited firearm, and the treatment for that is different. We are looking at life sentences and minimum sentences for those individuals because a gun is designed to do only one thing, is to kill. A man have a knife is dangerous, but a machete is used to farm, to chop firewood, to clean a field, do all kind of productive things. But if you have an illegal gun, it can only do one thing, is to kill somebody. There you pull the trigger, which is very easy to use it. That missile, if it hits someone, is killing them, right? And that's why we are making it, taking that seriously and ensure that when that legislation is now at the very end of the process of legislation, we are at the point where the Joint Select Committee is going through the final amendments, and the report will be done by, I expect, within the next 2 sittings. We should have it in the last sitting of the House. It should be debated fairly quickly, as we have had a Joint Select Committee for over a year, and we'll have it in place. And I can assure the police officers the next illegal gun runner they find, or the next man they find carrying around an AK-47 bomb stock, he's not going to come back on the street in a year's time to arrest him, because I have to stand here and say it's sometimes very frustrating for the police officers to lock up somebody who killed somebody who is known to be firing gun. And the little argument about the bail. Bail is a right, and I won't get into that debate at this point. I'm not a lawyer. There are many aspects to it which has to be examined. But they get the evidence, they work hard, and it's hard work. Police officers put their life at risk. Find the man who is killing people. Eventually, getting him court, he's tried, he's found guilty, or he pleads guilty, and he gets off with 3 years because it's hard to find him pulling the trigger. And it's hard to get evidence when he shoots somebody because very few people want to give the first person affidavit, as they call it. But based on their investigation and the forensic, they can say this man had this gun and it's a legal firearm. So he's charged and committed for illegal possession of a firearm. He get 2 years. The truth is 2 years in prison is a maturing process for a criminal because he gets a bigger network and he's back on the street before you catch the next one, and the same officer who locked him up a year ago. Because if he gets 3 years, he's out in 2 years. By the time the officer gets his first vacation in hard work, he's back. He's the man walking down the street. It can be quite frustrating. And this is why the government has taken the position to initiate and legislate the new Firearms Act, which will in fact hold those people who carry illegal guns accountable and put them off the street for a long time, and allow the security forces some time to reduce that side of the criminal activity. We are going to find the gun runners, the gang members, and there will be stiffer penalties out there. If you possess, traffic, deal, stockpile in illegal firearms, we are going to put you away. I have every confidence in the police officers in Jamaica. I'm not saying they're perfect because I'm Minister of National Security, but I could easily say the 12,000 officers who exist in Jamaica today, more than 99% of them are committed to law-abiding activity and to law enforcement, to have a peaceful and just side. They Jamaica living just like us. They want to be able to go home from work 4 o'clock and come back out, walk down the street and play a dog game of domino with their friends. Like anybody else. And their mother want to go to prayer meeting on Wednesday night and Thursday night without feeling afraid that when they're going home, gunfire across their head and they get killed by collateral damage. The same people. not different from anybody else in here. And they want the same objective. It is true. We are a society, they are recruited from society, and there'll be one or two, like every profession. We have had doctors charged with corruption. We have had lawyers who have faced the general legal codes and banned from practicing over and over. So, but they will never have a perfect organization. 12,000 men recruited from society. But the vast majority are working hard to protect and serve, as they say. A comprehensive review of existing national control system for the regulation of firearms will come with the Firearms Act, development of national small arms control strategy, including the forensic science unit, will be there, support the advanced ratification of a number of international conventions. The Inter-American Convention Against Illicit Manufacture and Traffic of Firearms comes on United, explosive and other related materials. We will use the Gunpowder Act, review that, and on the other hand, we'll have a holistic project approach, and we'll place emphasis on transformative activity within the community, and the zones of special operations among that bit of legislation. And I want to say that whatever we initiate from government will focus on seek to what extent we can reduce the number of recruitable young males. Gender violence in Jamaica, and which is the international headliner. Gender violence is not the headliner, it's not only in Jamaica. In fact, most gender violence comes when one young man disrespects the woman from the other side in a gang war. If you interfere with my sister or my girlfriend or my mother, it's called a killing. It's a capital crime in the gang world. That's how gender violence goes. And in fact, in this side of the world, many of them, they'll tell you they get into advanced fee fraud that they can look after the mother and the grandmother. And they send their little sister to school. And I've met them and they'll tell me, Dr. Chang, I may die. They face the fate of it. But try let my little sister, she bright, finish school. That's the attitude. It's a cultural thing which we can take pride in. There's gender violence, but I'm just saying the bulk of it is more along those lines. And the society can take pride as a country that we have always, that today we are among the very first countries to approve legislation like equal pay for equal work among men and women. Paid maternity leave is still not true of many states of the United States. Jamaica has established a path was set for a long time. We may not have had the level of leadership the international agency like, but it's part of the culture. The grandmother at the local level was the most important community leader you could find in Jamaica. They were the one who held it together, and in fact, many of us feel that it's the disruption of that extended family, where the grandmother took almost responsibility for everybody within a certain circle, that have been replaced by modern development that has created some of the social tension that is leading to the kind of violence. Because they set the value. They said the ladies who like to go to the church on Wednesday night, when gunfire they can't go, they're hurt. But that is part of it. And we take pride in what we have done. We have more secondary school space for women than we have for men. And we have more than 3 times the amount of women in university than men today. When you take in all the tertiary institutions, not quite, but it is also true that part of the culture, as I said, Dr. Conley from Italy, you'd find that the firstborn son would be asked to work, send the younger brothers to the UK, and send the sister to school. That's the challenge we have now, is that instead of working to send the kids to school in a legitimate manner, they get into a gang to get the money to improve the family overnight. They have said to me in this constituency, the support that I'm doing, the support I can walk anywhere, you are doing something good, go do it, Dr. Chang. But I cannot live like my grandmother. They refuse to do so, and the object of that leg of war violence prevention is to offer the young men an alternative to a life of crime. It's a tough call in many instances once they have become involved, but there are several programs we have initiated. I won't spend more time going into it. We have announced them, the Jamaica National Service Corps, training programs through heart, vocational activity as well. But we're going to make a dramatic attempt at reaching them at the community level, at the prep school level. And the women that I'd like to see us reach in that process is the mothers. the single mother who has no job, who has 3 or 4 kids, and even 2. We are pretty managed family planning very well in Jamaica. But even 1, when they have no job, no work, no residence of consequence to live in, they send off that young male into the gang very early. From early, they take messages around. They will carry a message from one street to the other. They become like the eyes and ears for the gang. And they grow up till they can themselves pull the trigger and get involved. If we can intercede at that level, and as you do it all the time, I can say profoundly, we identify the root cause and we can reach the families from which these young men are emerging. I think that's when we begin to get the medium turnaround. Get a little child that they can get lunch, that they can have uniform, go to school, develop their mental capacity positively early on, and if we have to find a way that the mother will have a sensible income by training and also parenting to be able to guide that youngster and the entire community work together to build them out. So the audit will seek to examine all of that. The nature of violent acts, including gender-based acts, but male and male violence, because why 2 young male friends used to play football, take same taxi, go to school, pass in the square and gamble sometime together. Or they even leave out of school when they get rude and go play a game in the same game shop, talk to each other. When they're doing something wrong, this one looks out for the other one at school. Tell the teacher coming, when I'm on the street, them say, boy, this one police, the officer who might be assigned to come into work, coming around the corner, want him. Same too. And next week, each buy a gun and start shooting at each other. It's a puzzling activity, Mr. Antonio, Dr. Conley, but we're going to break it. And many times you meet those young men, because they ask what you, when you meet them, they'll come and sit with you and they're very nice, very, very responsible individuals. But behind the scenes, there's the problem. We'll gather gender data, disaggregate that data on information of causes, the violence acts, at what age, identify the activity that may mitigate or prevent the action, import activities to identify ways in which the measures such as essential service can be monitored to determine their activity in the community. So part of the government's crime CSP plan, city security plan, is to ensure that the challenged community like now gets the benefit of the social service we have. Better quality education. We have talked about for years, and I see Dr. Pinnock here, good friend and an outstanding education officer in the region. But I urge the professional in the Ministry of Education to think out of the box, work with initiatives that is there to bring better quality education to all our inner city communities. I say to Dr. Pinnock, as she has demonstrated her willingness and her intention, but not our colleagues, there's a little bit too much legacy of mistrust of our professionals in our education system as to what government intends to do. And in fact, over the years of neglect, teachers, I think, and to some extent, our police officers, our public service, I've seen most government initiatives surrounding compensation and the trust in terms of professional development and services takes a secondary seat. We're hoping this year that as we make serious adjustment to the compensation package, we can change that narrative and begin to look at quality service, because if we examine the challenge, as we did some years ago, you'll find that some 70% of our occupants of the correctional service came from certain schools. We cannot fix the problem unless we fix those schools. I've said that, and sometimes I get a beat up for it, but I have maintained it, and I see that more and more I'm getting support. Dr. Pinnock is here, and I had mentioned a small school we have down the road. Some years ago, Glen Devon, almost every week we had a school closure because there was police tape at the gate. But we started working, and I think last year all the school students, they not only increased in the numbers again, but all the boys got placed in school. And the level of literacy and numeracy increased significantly. And we have to do that all across Jamaica. where we have challenges. It applies not only to education, but to public health. The social services, too many times the benefit from part is small, but it's regular, and it helps the family, but the wrong people get it. We have to ensure that all of these part of the social security network reach the right people, and it can take all the time. This audit and the data gathered through the work of Salient and our collaborative institution will help to support, I prefer to use the term, to prove the concept of reaching all our community members, and that will begin the reduction in violence. So again, let me commend Salient, that I'm fully aware that this is the kind of activity that aids in Jamaica's economic growth. We have highlighted crime and violence as a government. It's a cause of underdevelopment, and it is indeed the first government. I'm here today, and I've been a part of not only in Parliament for a long time, but part of a government headed by a Labour Party Prime Minister before. But this is the first government led by Andrew Holness that have taken a very active and decisive role that security is a priority, and we need to restore public safety, good order, and have a strong security force and service to help to restore that order in the country. And is not only saying it, but we're investing in it. It's a process we started. We had a 2-year delay, but we are going to do it and ensure that our police officers have the legislative, the physical, and professional tools they require to deal with the problem. The JDF, which plays a supportive role, will have its role to play and also be equipped to do so. And we'll play an active role in interfacing with families from the babe of the single mother through to the teenager to begin to divert them from a life of crime and restore the good order and the kind of camaraderie which we know can dominate in these communities. I can assure you it is always a pleasure to come to Norwood, Mr. Spence, sit on the fence and 12 o'clock at night. You have the police team playing in there one time and the JDF team. Or to come down here and go to the August Square, the Garbage Square and play a game of domino. Sometimes I get a 6-love, sometimes I give a 6-love. And the girls used to play netball down here. It can be an extremely productive and wonderful atmosphere when the community moves like that. And at the same time produce some of our brightest kids that will come out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, I took a lot of your time and I came late, but please accept my apology. This is a very big topic for me. This community I consider very special, but I want to again commend my ministry staff, first the police officers who are here keeping the peace. It's hard work, but I know that, as I said one place, now it plays again. We'll have to keep it that way. And commend the United Nations for the effort, work with the staff of my ministry. Mr. Williams, I want to thank you. The team that is working to all of this work, and I can assure you of the cooperation of the leadership here. Councillor Cummings lives in the community. Councillor Spencer, I call him Deacon, is Deacon for the church up the road and lives in the community and drives a very vibrant community organization only, I think. And last night, the night before, we had a CDC meeting with the community on Zoom with about 60 or 70 attendees from the community for that side. So they are quite on the ball, and we want to assure them, and we'll continue the work. And as I said, it's reestablish the framework for peace and safety in the community, and even take now to another level as a community organization. Again, let me thank everyone and look forward to a successful audit and interaction of the UN project with the government agencies in Norwood. Thank you. Thank you.
That was indeed a very comprehensive presentation by the keynote speaker, Dr. Chang. Not only did he make reference to the problems, but he also presented solutions. And just quickly to say, two key takeaways. He underscored the importance of us working collaboratively to ensure that we can provide the means to the youth so that they can be productive members of the society and to actually give them an opportunity to engage in legitimate activity. Also, the importance of us fully supporting the police in their focus and dedicated work to ensure that we can be that safe Jamaica that we all want. Now, there are just two further items on the agenda. One, of course, is the refreshment, which will be the last item. But before that, we need to give thanks. We need to give thanks for all those who have been involved in putting together this program. So, to that end, I'm going to call on Mr. Delon Gale, President of the Community Development Council of Denham Town, to give the vote of thanks. Welcome, Delon.
The Honorable Dr. Horace Strong, DPM Minister of National Security, Ms. Denise Antonio, UNDP Rep, Mr. Dr. Gary Cullen, United Nations Rep, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a privilege and honor to propose this vote of thanks this afternoon. I must first also thank my team who journeyed down with me from Denham Town. Give it up for them. To Pastor Olivia Dixon, thank you for invoking the word of God on the day's proceeding, as we all can attest that all things are possible through Christ. I wish to extend a heart thank you to the UNDP and United Nations representative respectively, Ms. Denise Antonio and Dr. Gary Cullen, for collaborating with the government of Jamaica on this worthwhile initiative, an initiative we hope will have a great impact on our nation going forward. My colleague, Mr. Delton Spence, we both represent our respective communities well, and for that we should be proud. I share your passion of wanting to see the change within our communities, nothing less than uplifting a positive vibes. I hear you today, and I thank you for your sharing of thought and the important development of our local space. Let us all say a big wow once more and give a further round of applause for our future generation from the Rose Art Preparatory School. You surely entertain us today and leaving us wanting more. Well done, children. I further extend appreciation for all who was able to keep us entertained. To Mr. Junior Rose, the role of local government is an important wide. The role of the local governance is important while government important community building in relation to communities and service and everything community. Mr. Rose, you articulate some very interesting and salient points in your presentation. I thank you for being here to be able to share the opportunity to signal the Ministry of Local Government continue an endorsement to this project. To the Honorable Dr. Horace Strong, we all here cognizant of the portfolio in which you manage, and we know that it is not one of the easiest, nor possible could be one of the hardest. Sir, thank you. Sir, for this we say thank you. Thank you for taking on this mantle and doing your uttermost best. I, for one, appreciate your effort and your collaboration with the UNDP, which come at a very fruitful time. To the members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, thank you for continually giving your presence and your service to our nation, to Norwood and other communities like Denham Town, which you have given up significantly. Stay there. I can attest to Mr. Samuels. I see him laughing, knowing that when the zone came to Denham Town in 2017, he take on a young person like myself and others. And I can say, attest, the zone of special operation to our honorable minister is of a fruitful nature, and we see him strive.
So for this, we say thank you to our government and to our nation. And God bless you all, and have a pleasant day.
All that's left for me to do is to just bring these proceedings to an end. And interestingly, we're getting showers of blessings as we close this afternoon. It has been a long day for you. I just want to wish you a very pleasant rest of the day. Have a wonderful weekend as we all continue to contribute to make Jamaica that place of choice too. All right, so my Denham Town colleagues know that quite well. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Have a wonderful weekend all. Thank you.
should be safe havens for our youth. However, armed violence in school settings is sadly a growing phenomenon. Firearms are finding their way onto the school grounds and into the schools, exposing Latin American and Caribbean children to unnecessary risks. This trend is a reflection of the region's high levels of homicides committed with firearms, the highest in the world, as well as of the elevated levels of criminality plaguing our region. This scourge, with an unacceptably young face, is growing and affecting the very adolescents and young people who we are meant to protect. To magnify matters, the issue of firearms in schools is one that, until now, has received little attention. This is accompanied by the fact that there is an absence of statistical data in the region, making it difficult to identify the true magnitude of the problem. But why are firearms entering our schools, and what is being done to address it? Weapons are entering our schools and being used to threaten and intimidate. They are also being used as a response to bullying and other forms of violence under the guise of protection, or simply under the false pretense that weapons symbolize power, popularity, and manhood. Regardless of the reason for bringing a firearm to school, one thing is clear: firearms have no place in school settings, and their mere presence increases the risk of injuries and fatalities. In recent years, states and partners have acknowledged arms control as an effective measure in preventing firearms incidents in schools. At the national level, the education and security sectors have come together to offer practical solutions. Some of these include the creation of norms prohibiting the entry of weapons into schools, while others focus on keeping firearms out of the reach of children through safe storage practices at home, ensuring these guns never make their way to the school grounds. Guidelines have also been developed so that the school community knows how to react in the unfortunate event a gun finds its way into educational centers. So, how else can this challenge be addressed? By promoting dialogue among various sectors and actors to develop strategies to prevent the presence of weapons in schools. Recognizing and enabling youth as agents of change, as established by United Nations Security Council Resolution 2250 on Youth, Peace and Security, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including a gender perspective and the promotion of nonviolent masculinities to reinforce a culture of peace and peaceful coexistence, collecting data for informed decision-making, and finally, by promoting disarmament and arms control campaigns as an effective tool in preventing armed violence in learning establishments. Firearms have no place in our schools. We must keep our children safe.